Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stared at the massive asteroid floating in front of their ship. The New Frontier was a big cargo vessel, built for mining operations in deep space. Jake had been captain for 5 years now, and he knew every sound the ship made. Today, something felt different. "Captain, we're picking up some strange readings from that asteroid," said Lisa Park, his chief engineer. She was looking at her screen with a worried expression. "The energy signatures don't match anything we've seen before." Jake walked over to look at the readings. The numbers were jumping around like crazy. "Could be a new type of mineral deposit," he said. "Tony, what do you think?" Tony Garcia, their medic, shook his head. "I don't know much about minerals, but those readings look almost like life signs to me. Weak ones, but still there." Helen Wright, their communications officer, looked up from her station. "Captain, I'm getting some kind of signal from the asteroid. It's very faint, but it's definitely not natural." Jake felt his heart race. In all his years of mining, he had never found anything like this. The asteroid was huge, maybe 3 miles across, and covered in strange crystal formations that seemed to glow with their own light. "All right, everyone, we're going to take a closer look. Lisa, prepare the mining equipment. Tony, get the medical scanners ready. Helen, keep monitoring those signals." As they moved closer to the asteroid, Jake could see that something was wrong. The crystal formations weren't natural. They looked like they had been broken and scattered, as if something had exploded from the inside out. Deep cracks ran across the surface, and in some places, the asteroid looked like it had been torn apart. "Captain," Lisa called out, "I'm seeing something big underneath all that debris." "It's moving, but very slowly." Jake grabbed his helmet and prepared for a spacewalk. "I'm going out there to take a look." "Keep the ship steady." "Sir, that might not be safe," Tony said. "We don't know what's out there." "That's exactly why I need to see it myself," Jake replied. He had always been the type of person who needed to see things with his own eyes before making decisions. The spacewalk to the asteroid took 10 minutes. As Jake got closer, he could see that the crystal formations were actually some kind of cage or prison. Something massive was trapped underneath tons of broken crystal and rock. His helmet lights revealed glimpses of what looked like dark, shiny armor. "My God," Jake whispered into his radio. "There's something alive in there." "What do you mean alive?" Helen asked from the ship. Jake moved closer, his heart pounding. Through a gap in the debris, he could see what looked like a huge creature. It was unlike anything he had ever seen or imagined. The creature had a long body covered in dark plates that looked like armor. Multiple limbs stuck out from its sides, and its head was shaped like a dragon from old Earth stories. But what caught Jake's attention were the patterns of light that moved across the creature's body. They pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat, but they were getting weaker. "It's hurt," Jake said. "Really hurt. And I think it's trying to communicate." The light patterns on the creature's body changed when Jake spoke. They became brighter for a moment, as if the creature had heard him and was trying to respond. "Captain, you need to get back to the ship right now," Lisa said. "That thing could be dangerous." Jake looked at the creature more carefully. It was massive, probably 100 feet long, but it wasn't moving much. Its breathing was slow and labored. As he watched, Jake noticed something else. The creature's body was swollen in the middle, and the light patterns there were different from the rest. "I think it's pregnant," Jake said quietly. "What?" Tony's voice came through the radio. "Captain, please tell me you're not thinking what I think you're thinking." Jake was quiet for a long moment. The creature's lights were getting dimmer. He could see that it was dying, trapped under all that debris. If it really was pregnant, then there were babies in there that would die too. "We're going to free it," Jake said. "Are you crazy?" Lisa shouted. "That thing is huge. It could kill us all." "Look at it," Jake said. "It's not trying to hurt anyone. It's trapped and dying. If we don't help it, it's going to die along with its babies." Jake had always been guided by his conscience. His mother had taught him that if you could help someone and chose not to, you were responsible for what happened to them. It didn't matter if that someone was human or not. "Captain, we don't know anything about this creature," Helen said. "It could be hostile. It could be carrying diseases. We could be putting Earth in danger. Or, Jake said, we could be saving an intelligent life form and its children. Look at those light patterns. That's not random. It's trying to talk to. U.S. Jake spent another hour studying the creature and the debris that trapped it. The crystal formations were incredibly hard, but their mining equipment should be able to cut through them. The tricky part would be removing the debris without crushing the creature further. When he returned to the ship, his crew was waiting. For him, they all looked worried. Jake, Lisa said, using his first name instead of his rank, I've been thinking about this, and I don't think it's a good idea. We don't know what that thing is or where it came from. That's exactly why we need to help it, Jake replied. Think about it. If we were trapped somewhere and aliens found us, wouldn't we want them to try to help? Tony nodded slowly. I see your point, but Lisa's right too. We could be putting ourselves in danger. Everything we do out here is dangerous, Jake said. But this feels different. This feels important. Helen looked at her readings again. The signals are getting weaker, Captain. If that thing is alive, it's not going to be for much longer, Jake made his decision. We're going to do this. Lisa, I need you to figure out how to cut through those crystals without bringing more debris down on the creature. Tony, prepare the medical bay for something big, really big. Helen, keep monitoring the signals and let me know if anything changes. And if it tries to kill us? Lisa asked. Then we'll deal with that when it happens, Jake said. But I don't think it will. I think it's just scared and hurt. As they prepared for the rescue operation, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that this moment would change everything. He had spent his whole life mining asteroids and hauling cargo from one planet to another. It was honest work, but it wasn't exactly exciting. Now, floating in space near a dying alien creature, Jake felt like he was finally doing something that mattered. Something that his mother would have been proud of. The creature's lights pulsed weakly in the darkness, and Jake made a promise to himself and to the creature that he would do everything in his power to save it, even if it meant risking his own life and the lives of his crew, because sometimes doing the right thing was more important than playing it safe. The rescue operation began at dawn, ship time. Jake had barely slept, thinking about the alien creature trapped under the crystal debris. Every few hours he had checked the readings, and each time the life signs were a little weaker. Lisa worked on her computer, figuring out the best way to cut through the crystals without making things worse. I think we can use the plasma cutters, she said. But we'll have to be really careful. One wrong move, and we could bring down more debris. Tony was preparing the cargo bay for their unexpected patient. I've never treated anything like this before, he said. I don't even know if human medicine will work on it. We'll figure it out as we go, Jake said. Right now, the important thing is getting it free. The first cut took 3 hours. Jake piloted the mining robot while Lisa operated the plasma cutter from inside the ship. The crystal was harder than anything they had worked with before, and the cutter had to be run at maximum power. Easy, 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 Jake said as a large piece of debris shifted. We don't want to crush it. Helen monitored the creature's signals from her station. The light patterns are changing, she reported. I think it knows we're trying to help. As they worked, Jake began to notice something interesting about the creature. When the plasma cutter got too close, the light patterns on its body would flash brighter, as if it was trying to warn them. When they cut in the right places, the lights would pulse in what looked like approval. It's definitely intelligent, Jake said. Look at how it's responding to what we're doing. The second cut was easier because they had learned how to read the creature's signals. It seemed to understand what they were trying to do and was helping them by showing them the safest places to cut. But as they worked, Jake noticed something worrying. The creature's body was starting to move in a different way. The swollen part in the middle was contracting, and the light patterns there were becoming more urgent. Tony, Jake called over the radio, I think it's going into labor. What? Now? Tony's voice was panicked. We're not ready for that. We have to be ready, Jake said. Because it's happening whether we're ready or not. The final cut took another 6 hours. By the time they freed the creature, Jake's hands were shaking from exhaustion and stress. The creature was even bigger than he had thought, nearly 100. and 50 feet long and maybe 20 feet wide. Moving it to the cargo bay was the hardest part. The creature was too weak to move on its own, so they had to use the ship's crane system to lift it. Jake was terrified that they would hurt it, but the creature seemed to trust them. Its light pattern stayed calm and steady. Once they got the creature into the cargo bay, Jake could see just how badly it was hurt. Its armor was cracked in several places, and some of its limbs were twisted at wrong angles. But worse than that, it was clearly in pain. The light patterns on its body were pulsing fast and irregular. "The air in here won't work for it," Lisa sighed, looking at her readings. "It needs a different mix of gases." Tony was already working on that. "I'm rigging up a new life support system. It's going to take a few hours." "We might not have a few hours," Jake said. The creature's breathing was getting more labored, and the contractions in its middle section were getting stronger. Jake made a decision that surprised even himself. He climbed down into the cargo bay and walked over to the creature. Up close, it was even more magnificent and terrifying. Its head was the size of a small car, and its teeth were longer than his forearm, but when Jake approached, the creature's eyes opened and looked at him. They were large and dark, with flecks of gold that seemed to glow. And in those eyes, Jake saw something he recognized: intelligence, pain, and gratitude. "Hey there," Jake said softly. "We're going to help you, okay? Just hang in there." The creature made a sound that was somewhere between a purr and a growl. It wasn't threatening, it was almost gentle. Then it did something that made Jake's heart skip. It moved one of its smaller limbs toward him, not to attack, but to touch his hand. The limb was warm and covered in the same armor-like plates as the rest of its body. When it touched Jake's hand, he felt a strange, tingling sensation, as if a small electrical current was passing between them. "Jake," Helen called from above, "the signals are changing again. They're becoming more complex." Jake looked up at the creature's face. The light patterns on its body were now pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. Somehow, the creature was connecting with him, reading his emotions and intentions. "It knows we're trying to help," Jake said. "It can feel that we're not a threat." The labor began in earnest around midnight. Jake stayed with the creature the entire time, talking to it softly and keeping his hand on its limb. Tony had managed to get the life support system working, and the creature's breathing had improved, but it was clear that the birth was not going well. The creature was weak from its injuries, and the stress of being trapped had taken its toll. Jake could see that it was struggling. "Come on," Jake whispered. "You can do this. Your babies need you." The creature's eyes looked at him with such trust that Jake felt tears running down his face. It was fighting to live, not just for itself, but for its children. The first baby was born just after 2 in the morning. Jake had never seen anything like it. The baby was about the size of a large dog, with the same armor-like skin as its mother. But the plates were softer and more flexible. Its light patterns were bright and active, pulsing with what looked like curiosity. The second baby came an hour later. This one was slightly smaller, with different colored light patterns, more silver than gold. Both babies were moving around, making soft chirping sounds that somehow reminded Jake of bird songs, but the mother was getting weaker. The birth had taken the last of her strength, and her light patterns were fading. Jake could see that she was dying. "No," Jake said, gripping her limb tighter. "Don't give up now. Your babies need you?" The creature looked at him one last time, and Jake felt that strange electrical connection again. But this time it was different. It felt like the creature was trying to tell him something important. The light patterns on her body began to change, becoming more complex and organized. The patterns moved from her head down to her limbs, then back up again, repeating the same sequence over and over. "She's trying to communicate," Helen said from above. "The patterns are too complex to be random." Jake watched the light show, and somehow he understood. The creature was showing him something about her babies, about how to take care of them. The message was clear. She was entrusting them to him. "I understand," Jake said softly. "I'll take care of them, I promise." The creature's eyes closed, and the light patterns on her body faded to black. She died peacefully. With Jake's hand still touching her limb, the two babies had been quiet during their mother's final moments, But now they began to move toward Jake. Their light patterns were bright and active, and they made soft chirping sounds as they approached. Jake knelt down as the babies came closer. They were beautiful in their own alien way, with large eyes that sparkled with intelligence and curiosity. When they reached him, they both did something that took Jake's breath away. They touched him with their small limbs, just as their mother had done. And in that moment, Jake felt the same electrical connection. But this time, it was different. It felt like recognition, like the babies somehow knew that he was the one who had saved them. The babies looked up at Jake with their bright eyes, and he knew that his life had just changed forever. He was no longer just a cargo ship captain. He was now the guardian of 2 alien children, and he had no idea what that meant. But as he looked down at the 2 small creatures who had already begun to trust him, Jake knew that he would do whatever it took to protect them and help them grow. Their mother had died trusting him with the most precious thing in her life. Her children Dot and Jake Morrison was not the kind of man who broke promises, especially promises made to dying mothers. Jake spent the first day after the birth just watching the 2 baby creatures. They were unlike anything he had ever seen, but somehow they felt familiar. The smaller one with silver light patterns reminded him of moonlight, so he decided to call her Luna. The larger one with golden patterns looked like sunlight, so he named him Rex. "They're following you everywhere," Lisa said, watching from the upper level of the cargo bay. "Every time you move, they move too?" It was true. Wherever Jake went, Rex and Luna followed. When he sat down, they sat next to him. When he stood up, they stood up too. They seemed to hang on his every word, even though he was sure they couldn't understand English. Tony was fascinated by their behavior. "I've never seen anything like it," he said. "It's like they think you're their parent." "Maybe I am," sighed quietly. "Their mother trusted me with them before she died. The babies were growing fast." In just 3 days, they had doubled in size. Rex was now the size of a small pony, and Luna wasn't much smaller. Their armor plates were getting harder, and their light patterns were becoming more complex. But what surprised Jake the most was how smart they were. On the 4th day, Rex figured out how to open the cargo bay doors just by watching Lisa do it once. Luna learned to turn the lights on and off by touching the control panel with her limb. "They're learning our technology," Helen said, sounding worried. "Is that safe?" Jake watched as Rex carefully pressed buttons on a control panel, not randomly but with purpose. The creature seemed to understand what each button did. "I think it's amazing," Jake said. "Look how gentle he is. He's not trying to break anything." The crew was still nervous around the creatures, but Jake felt completely comfortable with them. Rex and Luna had never shown any aggression toward anyone. They were curious about everything, but they were also careful and respectful. On the 5th day, something happened that changed everything. The New Frontier received a distress signal from a nearby shipping route. A cargo ship was being attacked by pirates, and they were asking for help. "We have to respond," Jake said. "It's space law." "But what about them?" Lisa asked, pointing at Rex and Luna. "They'll be fine," Jake said. "Can just keep them in the cargo bay." The pirate ship was a modified destroyer, much bigger and better armed than the New Frontier. Jake knew they couldn't fight it directly, but they might be able to distract the pirates long enough for the cargo ship to escape. "This is Captain Morrison of the New Frontier," Jake announced over the radio. "Release that ship immediately." The pirates laughed. "Go away, little cargo ship, or we'll take you too." Jake was about to respond when he heard a strange sound from the cargo bay. It was a low humming noise, like the sound of electricity running through power lines. The lights on the ship flickered. "What's happening?" Helen asked Dot before anyone could answer. The cargo bay doors opened. Rex and Luna came out, but they looked different. Their light patterns were brighter and more intense than Jake had ever seen them. The humming sound was coming from them. "Get back to the cargo bay," Jake said, but the creatures ignored him. They moved to the front of the ship and looked out at the pirate vessel through the VIEWPORT. Suddenly, the pirate ship's lights went out. Then their engines stopped. The pirates were shouting over the radio, but their voices were full of panic instead of anger. "What did you do?" the pirate captain screamed. Our systems are dead. Jake looked at Rex and Luna. They were standing side by side, their light patterns pulsing in perfect sync. The humming sound was getting stronger, and Jake could feel electricity in the air. I don't think we did anything, Jake said into the radio. Maybe you should run? The pirates tried to restart their engines, but nothing worked. Their ship was completely dead in space. After a few minutes, they launched escape pods and abandoned their ship entirely. The cargo ship they had been attacking sent a message of thanks and continued on its way. Jake stared at Rex and Luna, who were now calm again. Their light patterns had returned to normal, and they were looking at him as if nothing had happened. Did you two do that? Jake asked. Rex made a soft chirping sound and touched Jake's hand with his limb. Jake felt that familiar electrical connection, but this time it was stronger. For just a moment, he could sense what Rex was feeling: protectiveness, loyalty, and something that felt like pride. They were protecting us, Jake said in amazement. They disabled the pirate ship to keep us safe. Tony was checking his medical scanners. The electrical readings from them are off the charts. They're generating enough power to run a small city. But they only used it when we were in danger, Lisa said. They're not just powerful. They're controlled. Over the next few days, Jake began to understand more about Rex and Luna's abilities. They could generate electrical fields that could shut down electronic systems. They could communicate with each other through light patterns that were too fast for human eyes to follow. And they seemed to be able to sense emotions and intentions, but what impressed Jake the most was their judgment. They never used their powers unless there was a real threat. When a drunk crew member from a trading station tried to start a fight, Rex simply stood between him and Jake. The man took one look at the creature and decided to leave quietly. They're not just smart, Jake told his crew. They're wise. They understand the difference between real danger and just noise. The creatures also showed affection in ways that surprised Jake. Luna would rest her head on his shoulder when he was working at his desk. Rex would bring him things, tools, data pads, even food, as if he wanted to help. They both seemed to enjoy being petted, making soft purring sounds when Jake scratched behind their headplates. It's like having two very large, very intelligent dogs, Helen said. Except these dogs can shut down spaceships. Jake was beginning to realize that Rex and Luna were bonded to him in a way that went beyond normal animal behavior. They didn't just obey him, they anticipated his needs. When he was tired, they would guide him to his quarters. When he was hungry, they would lead him to the kitchen. When he was stressed, they would sit with him until he felt better. I think their species forms deep emotional bonds, Tony said. Maybe that's how they survived as a species, by working together and protecting each other. The bond worked both ways. Jake found himself thinking about Rex and Luna even when they weren't around. He worried about their health, their happiness, and their future. He was starting to understand how a parent felt about their children, but Jake also sensed that there was more to the creatures than he understood. Sometimes he would catch them staring at the stars with an expression that seemed almost sad. Their light patterns would become dim and slow, as if they were remembering something from long ago. I think they're homesick, Jake said one evening, as he watched them looking out the viewport. But I don't know where home is for them. Rex and Luna turned to look at him when he spoke. Their light patterns brightened, and they both came over to him. Luna rested her head on his lap while Rex sat beside his chair. We're your family now, Jake said, scratching Luna behind her headplates. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. The creatures made soft chirping sounds, and Jake felt that electrical connection again. But this time, the feeling was different. It felt like gratitude, like love, and like a promise. Jake realized that his life had changed in ways he never could have imagined. He was no longer just a cargo ship captain. He was the guardian of two remarkable creatures who had chosen to trust him with their lives. And somehow, he knew that this was just the beginning of an adventure that would take them far beyond anything he had ever dreamed. As the new frontier continued its journey through space, Jake felt a sense of purpose he had never experienced before. He had saved 2 lives, and in return, those lives had become the most important thing in his universe. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he would face them with Rex and Luna by his side, because that's what families do. They protect each other no matter what. The journey back to Earth took 6 weeks, and during that time Jake spent every free moment studying Rex and Luna. He watched how they communicated with each other through their light patterns, how they learned new things just by observing, and how they seemed to understand human emotions better than most humans did. "I've been searching through the galactic database," Helen said one morning. "I think I found something about their species." Jake looked up from where he was sitting with Luna. The creature had grown again and was now almost as tall as Jake when she stood on her hind legs. "What did you find?" Helen brought up a holographic display showing ancient symbols and star charts. The patterns matched something called the Zephyrian species. But according to this, they went extinct over 1,000 years ago. "Well, obviously they didn't all die out," Lisa said, looking at Rex, who was carefully examining a piece of mining equipment. "These two are proof of that." Jake studied the information Helen had found. The Zephyrians were described as an ancient and powerful species that had once ruled large parts of the galaxy. They were known for their intelligence, their electrical abilities, and their capacity to form bonds with other species. "It says here that they were peacekeepers," Jake read aloud. "They helped settle disputes between different alien races and protected younger species from threats." "That explains why they protected us from the pirates," Tony said. "It's in their nature to help others." But the more Jake read, the more worried he became. The database also mentioned that many species had tried to capture or control the Zephyrians because of their abilities. Some had wanted to use them as weapons, others as living power sources. "That's probably why they disappeared," Jake said. "They went into hiding to survive?" 3 days later, they received a message that made Jake's blood run cold. An Earth fleet, admiral named Susan Cole, was requesting permission to board their ship and examine the alien specimens they had recovered. "Specimens?" Jake said angrily. "Rex and Luna aren't specimens, they're intelligent beings." "The message came through official channels," Helen said. "We can't refuse an admiral's request." Jake looked at Rex and Luna, who were playing together in the cargo bay. They had no idea that their peaceful life was about to be disrupted. "Yes, we can. This is my ship, and they're under my protection." But Jake knew that refusing an admiral's order would mean trouble for his crew. Earth Fleet had the power to take away their mining licenses, impound their ship, and even arrest them if they wanted to. "Maybe we should hear what she has to say first," Lisa suggested. "It might not be as bad as we think." Admiral Cole arrived 2 days later in a fast military ship. She was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. Jake didn't trust her from the moment she stepped aboard. "Captain Morrison," she said, "I'm here to discuss the alien creatures you've recovered. Earth Fleet has received reports about their abilities, and we need to understand what we're dealing with." Jake led her to the cargo bay where Rex and Luna were resting. When they saw the Admiral, both creatures stood up and moved closer to Jake. Their light patterns became brighter, and Jake could feel their nervousness. "Remarkable," Admiral Cole said, studying them carefully. "They're much larger than the reports indicated, and those light patterns are clearly a form of communication." "They're intelligent," Jake said firmly. "They understand what we're saying, and they have emotions just like we do." The Admiral walked around Rex and Luna, examining them like they were machines instead of living beings. "Captain, do you have any idea what these creatures represent?" "They're refugees," Jake said. "Their mother was dying, and she trusted me to take care of them." Admiral Cole shook her head. "They're much more than that. These are Zephyrians, Captain, a species that was thought to be extinct for over 1,000 years. Their return could change the balance of power in the galaxy." She pulled up a holographic display showing star charts and military reports. "Every major alien empire has been searching for surviving Zephyrians for centuries. The Drakmor Empire, the Stellar Consortium, the Void Hunters, they all want to find them." "Why?" Jake asked, though he was afraid he already knew the answer. "Because Zephyrians can do things no other species can do. They can disable entire fleets. with their electrical abilities. They can live for thousands of years. And, most importantly, they can share their knowledge and abilities with other species through bonding. Jake looked at Rex and Luna, who were listening to every word. Their light patterns were pulsing faster now, and Jake could sense their growing anxiety. "The mother chose you specifically," Admiral Cole continued. "Zephyrians don't bond randomly. They can sense the character and intentions of other species. She must have seen something in you that convinced her you were worthy of trust." "So what does that mean?" Jake asked. "It means that you and these creatures are now the most valuable assets in the galaxy. There are species out there that would do anything to get their hands on bonded Zephyrians." Jake felt Rex brush against his arm with his limb. The electrical connection was stronger now, and Jake could sense the creature's emotions clearly. Rex was afraid, but not for himself. He was afraid for Jake and the crew. "They're not assets," Jake said angrily. "They're my family." Admiral Cole looked surprised. "Captain, I don't think you understand the situation. These creatures possess abilities that could revolutionize human technology. They could help us defend Earth from threats we can't even imagine yet." "And what would happen to them?" Jake asked. "Would they be locked up in a laboratory, studied like animals, used as weapons?" "They would be treated with respect," the Admiral sighed, but Jake could hear the uncertainty in her voice. Luna made a soft chirping sound and moved closer to Jake. Her light patterns were dim and sad, as if she understood what the Admiral was suggesting. "No," Jake said firmly, "I won't let that happen." Admiral Cole's expression hardened. "Captain, this is bigger than your personal feelings. We're talking about the security of Earth and all human colonies." "Then maybe you should ask Rex and Luna what they want," Jake said, "instead of deciding for them." The Admiral looked at the creatures skeptically. "They're animals, Captain. Intelligent animals, but animals nonetheless." Rex stepped forward and touched the Admiral's arm with his limb. She jerked back in surprise, but Rex wasn't being aggressive. His light patterns were calm and patient. "He's trying to communicate with you," Jake said. "Let him." Admiral Cole hesitantly allowed Rex to touch her arm again. Her eyes widened as she felt the electrical connection. "My God," she whispered. "He's showing me images, memories I can see his mother and the moment she died. I can feel his gratitude toward you, Captain." Luna joined her brother, and both creatures began communicating with the Admiral through their light patterns. The display was beautiful and complex, telling a story without words. "They're showing me their history," the Admiral said in amazement. "Their species was dying out because other races kept trying to use them. They went into hiding, but they've been waiting for the right species to partner with." Jake felt a surge of pride as he realized what the creatures were telling her. "They chose humanity. They chose us." "Not humanity," Admiral Cole said, looking at Jake with new respect. "They chose you. And through you, they're willing to help humanity, but only if we prove ourselves worthy of their trust." The Admiral was quiet for a long moment, processing what she had learned. "Captain, I came here planning to take these creatures back to Earth for study. But now I understand that would be a mistake." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "I mean that separating them from you would break the bond they've formed. And without that bond, they wouldn't be able to help anyone. They would just be two lonely creatures in a cage." Admiral Cole looked at Rex and Luna, who were now sitting peacefully beside Jake. "The question is, Captain, what do you want to do with this gift you've been given?" Jake thought about everything that had happened since he first found the dying mother on that asteroid. He had saved 2 lives, and in return, those lives had become the most important thing in his world. "I want to protect them," Jake said. "And I want to help them find others of their kind, if any exist." "That might be exactly what the galaxy needs," Admiral Cole said. "Because if the Zephyrians are returning, it means something big is coming. Something that will require all the allies we can find." Jake looked at Rex and Luna, who were watching him with their bright, intelligent eyes. Whatever was coming, they would face it together, because that's what families do. 6 months after returning to Earth, Jake's life had changed in ways he never could have imagined. Rex and Luna were now fully grown, each standing 12 feet tall and nearly 30 feet long. They lived in a special facility built just for them, but Jake visited them every day. The facility wasn't a prison or a laboratory. It was more like a home with large open spaces, comfortable resting areas, and access to the outdoors. Most importantly, Rex and Luna were free to come and go as they pleased. They chose to stay because Jake was there. "The readings are incredible," Dr. Betty Adams said, showing Jake the latest test results. She was the lead scientist studying the Zephyrians, but unlike other researchers, she treated Rex and Luna as partners, not subjects. "What kind of readings?" Jake asked, scratching Rex behind his head plates. The big creature made his happy purring sound and leaned into Jake's touch. "Their electrical output has increased by 300% since they bonded with you," Dr. Adams explained. "But more than that, they're generating new types of energy we've never seen before." Luna walked over and touched Jake's shoulder with her limb. Through their connection, Jake could feel what she was trying to tell him. The abilities weren't just growing, they were changing, becoming something new through their bond with him. "They're sharing their knowledge with me," Jake said. "Every day I understand more about how their technology works, how their society was organized, and how they see the universe." But the peaceful months of study and learning came to an end when Admiral Cole arrived with urgent news. Her face was grim as she entered the facility. "We have a problem," she said. "The Drakmor Empire has found us." Jake felt Rex and Luna tense up beside him. Their light patterns immediately shifted to warning colors, bright red and orange pulses that meant danger. "What do you mean they found?" "U.S.?" Jake asked. Admiral Cole activated a holographic display showing star charts and fleet movements. 3 days ago, a Drakmor war fleet entered human space. They're demanding we turn over the Zephyrians or they'll attack Earth." "How many ships?" Jake asked, though he was afraid of the answer. 200 warships, including their flagship, Dreadnought. Our entire fleet has maybe 50 ships, and they're scattered across a dozen star systems. Jake looked at Rex and Luna, who were communicating with each other through rapid light patterns. After a moment, Rex turned to Jake and touched his arm. The connection was stronger than it had ever been. Jake could see images in his mind, other Zephyrians, hidden on distant worlds, waiting for a signal. Rex was showing him something important. "There are others," Jake said in amazement. "Rex is telling me that there are other Zephyrians still alive, hiding throughout the galaxy. How many?" Admiral Cole asked. Jake concentrated on the connection with Rex. The images were coming faster now, showing him cave systems on dead planets, underwater cities on ocean worlds, and space stations hidden in asteroid fields. "Hundreds," Jake said. "Maybe thousands. They've been in hiding for so long that even they lost track of each other." Luna joined the connection, and suddenly Jake could see even more. The hidden Zephyrians weren't just surviving, they were waiting. Waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves again. "They've been watching us," Jake said. "Ever since their mother died and Rex and Luna bonded with me, the others have been paying attention to humanity." "And?" Admiral Cole asked. Jake smiled as the images became clearer. "They like what they see. They think humans might be the partners they've been waiting for." Over the next 2 days, something amazing happened. Zephyrian ships began appearing. In human space, not to threaten, but to help. They were unlike any ships Jake had ever seen, looking more like living creatures than machines. They pulsed with the same light patterns as Rex and Luna, and they moved through space with a grace that no human ship could match. 37 Zephyrian vessels so far, Admiral Cole reported. Each one is bonded with a human crew member who showed kindness to their species. Jake was amazed to learn that he wasn't the only human who had helped Zephyrians. Over the years, other humans had found injured or lost Zephyrians and chosen to help them instead of exploit them. Each act of kindness had created a bond, and now those bonds were calling the hidden Zephyrians out of exile. When the Drakmor fleet arrived at Earth, they found something they never expected. Instead of 50 human ships, they faced nearly 100 vessels, half human, half Zephyrian, all working together. "This is Warlord Krax of the Drakmor Empire," came the threatening message. Surrender the Zephyrians immediately, or we will destroy your pathetic world. Jake was on the bridge of the lead ship, with Rex and Luna beside him. Admiral Cole had asked him to speak for the combined human-Zephyrian fleet. "This is Captain Jake Morrison," he responded. "The Zephyrians are our allies, not our prisoners. If you want to fight them, you'll have to fight us too." Warlord Krax laughed. "Foolish humans. You have no idea what you're dealing with. The Zephyrians belong to the strong, not to weak species like yours." Rex made a deep growling sound, and his light patterns shifted to angry red. Through their connection, Jake could feel the creature's rage at being called property. "You're wrong," Jake said calmly. "The Zephyrians don't belong to anyone. They choose their own partners, and they've chosen us." The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded history. The Drakmor ships were powerful and well-armed, but they had never faced bonded Zephyrians before. The combined human-Zephyrian fleet moved like a single organism, with perfect coordination and timing. Jake watched in amazement as Rex and Luna worked together with the ship's computers, using their electrical abilities to boost the vessel's power and weapons. Other Zephyrians were doing the same throughout the fleet, turning ordinary human ships into something extraordinary. But the real surprise came when the Zephyrians revealed abilities that even Jake didn't know about. They could create energy shields that protected entire ships from enemy fire. They could generate electromagnetic pulses that disabled whole sections of the enemy fleet. And they could communicate instantaneously across vast distances, coordinating attacks with perfect precision. The battle lasted 6 hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The Drakmor fleet, for all its size and firepower, couldn't match the bonded human Zephyrian ships. When it was over, Warlord Krax himself was forced to surrender. "This is impossible," Krax said over the radio. "The Zephyrians were defeated long ago." "They were weak and scattered." "They were never weak," Jake replied. "They were waiting for the right partners to help them reclaim their place in the galaxy." In the months that followed, everything changed. News of the human-Zephyrian alliance spread throughout the galaxy, and other species began to take notice. Some, like the peaceful Centauri Republic, sought friendship and trade agreements. Others, like the aggressive Void Hunters, became more cautious about threatening human colonies. Jake found himself at the center of it all. He had become the first human ambassador to the Zephyrian species, helping to establish the protocols for bonding and cooperation between the two races. The most important development was the creation of the Human Zephyrian Academy on Earth. Young humans and newly hatched Zephyrians learned together, forming bonds that would last for centuries. Jake often visited the academy, watching children play with baby Zephyrians who chirped and flashed their light patterns in joy. "Look at them," Dr. Adams said one day as they watched a group of 10-year-old humans teaching a young Zephyrian how to play catch. "They don't see differences. They just see friends." Jake nodded, feeling Rex and Luna's contentment through their bond. The two adult Zephyrians had become teachers at the academy, helping young humans understand how to communicate with their bonded partners. "This is what their mother wanted," Jake said quietly. "Not conquest or domination, but partnership and friendship." As the years passed, Jake aged while Rex and Luna remained young. Zephyrians lived for thousands of years, and through their bond, they shared some of that longevity with their human partners. Jake's hair turned gray, but his body remained strong and healthy. On his 70th birthday, Jake stood in the Academy's garden, watching a new generation of human children play with Zephyrian hatchlings. Rex and Luna stood beside him, now ancient by human standards, but still young for their species. "Do you ever regret it?" Dr. Adams asked, joining him in the garden. She was older now too, but still sharp and curious. "Regret what?" Jake asked. "Giving up your simple life as a cargo ship captain. You could have ignored that creature on the asteroid and lived a quiet, peaceful life." Jake watched as a little girl with bright eyes helped a young Zephyrian who had fallen down. The creature's light patterns pulsed with gratitude, and the girl giggled with delight. "I never gave up anything," Jake said, smiling. I found everything I never knew I was looking for." Rex and Luna made their happy purring sounds and pressed closer to Jake. Through their bond, he could feel their love, their gratitude, and their certainty that they had made the right choice all those years ago. Jake Morrison had started as a simple cargo ship captain who saw a creature in need and chose to help. That one act of compassion had changed the course of galactic history, creating an alliance that would protect countless worlds and species for generations to come. And it all began with a promise made.